Hello everyone. And welcome to my Iron Man build video. Today I'm going to be breaking down my glass cannon Iron Man build. However, before some of you click away, I will be showing you a way to adapt it into having some more defense so you can take this into any content in the game. Also be sure to subscribe as I have a raid-focused vibranium and sonic build coming soon. As you saw from the intro, Iron Man can hit huge chunks of burst damage, so this build is simply aiming to get the maximum amount of damage we can possibly get. This build is purely for getting the boss down as soon as possible. I wouldn't recommend taking this into regular mission without adding some defense related perks I'll be showing you later. Also, before we get into it, I want to answer a question I know will get asked. No, I wouldn't use this build in the raid. It sounds like we are going to be up against some seriously tougher enemies and going full glass cannon may not be the best idea. I have a full raid ready vibranium and sonic build with some higher defenses coming out soon. This build, however, will destroy everything else we currently have in the game, including the super Adaptoid, which is still over 90% of the content we have in the game. I personally find this build super fun, just watching enemies explode with these huge damage numbers. So let's jump into the build. Let's talk about the stats we are aiming for first, as it's pretty simple. We want as much precision and valor as possible. We don't need any resolve, resilience or anything when taking this build into a boss fight. We will be protected by the shield from Iron Man's arc overload, so no defense is needed. We are purely aiming for damage. This is because even against the super Adaptoid they will be dead before they have a chance to even deal damage to you, and bosses like the super Adaptoid will generally one or two shot you anyway unless you are running a full tank build. Even stats like proficiency can be left at 0 if possible. We still be critting on every hit anyway thanks to the battery effect and the Nord Stone. So, we are aiming for gear like this, precision and valor, with as high precision and valor as we can possibly get. A build like this will have you carrying your teammates to victory in the Omega level threat, as you will be able to deal huge amounts of damage, letting you solo the boss or at the very least do enough damage for your team to pick up the rest. For the melee slot I have two options. First, we have this Shock Valor Precision Gauntlet of the Storm piece. You can get this from the Monica villain sector. For Iron Man, the best way to apply your first status effect is with his melee signature attacks, so we want to aim for that. Shock allows us to also deal more damage to the boss when they are affected by the status effect. Because we are using a glass cannon build, you need to pick your moments when you use your dive attack on the boss, as a couple of hits will likely kill you. Please note, this build is generally better for higher skill players who know the boss's moveset and when they can attack without getting hit. I will show some ways you can add some defensive abilities later, but Iron Man in general is on the weaker side and requires some good movement and dodging to get the most out of him. We also have the Touch-In Surge perk, which will give you an extra 50% status damage for 10 seconds when activated. Please note, at the time of this video the Touch-In Surge hasn't been fixed yet, but will be after the patch on November the 30th. However, if you are not amazing at dodging and want an option with more of a defensive perk and a different status effect that works great for general mobbing, you can use something like this Hive Mind piece that adds a Jarvis barrier perk that can save you if you mess up your attacks. It also uses Gamma, which can be great for groups of enemies as it spreads to other enemies like a poison effect. This is adding some great area of effect damage that Iron Man is generally missing. You can farm this from the weekly Elite Hive. Next, we have our ranged slot. While this slot is your own choice, rockets are the best for damage, so I'll be showing you that. This can prove to be the hardest slot to get a good roll for. This is the best piece I've been able to find that has precision and valor with a targeted damage buff. The hard part about making this build is we need the status effect on our ranged piece to match the potentiator perks on our next two pieces. I have ended up with plasma, as I got these two great pieces that have precision and valor and a plasma potentiator on both. You can swap this to be for repulsors or lasers if you want. I have a super Adaptoid solo kill using this build with repulsors. I will leave linked in the description. So the choice is yours here, but the best is sadly rockets. For our defense slot we are using the plating of the storm, which you can also get from the Monica villain sector. We are using this for the high precision and valor stats and the plasma potentiator, increasing our plasma damage. While it isn't exactly a 20% buff to our damage, and it's still adding around 10 to 15% damage, which combined with our stats is a great damage buff. I have a full video investigating potentiators I will link in the description. Our final heroic slot is basically the same thing, just with a bit of intensity so we can apply our status effect easier. It also has touch-in surge on defeating an enemy, which is a great second way to activate it. This again drops from the Monica villain sector. I should note you can also get these storm pieces from touch-in rift missions, but the drop rate is extremely low. If you aren't up for grinding the Monica villain sector to get these touch-in pieces, anything with high precision and valor will still be good, but you need the potentiators if we want to really optimize our damage. The only thing that matters on our defense and heroic slots are the stats and getting matching potentiator. All the other perks aren't really doing anything. Best place to find this gear is the Monica villain sector weekly objective. For the ranged piece I'd recommend farming vaults. We top that off with 2 precision ISOs and the Nordstone artifact. This build will probably be a long grind to create, however once you get all these pieces the end result is pretty fantastic.
It's opening! What the hell is that? Super Adaptoid. Defend Project Omega. Okay, yikes. Looks like this new killbot is a big Avengers fan. Emma, you've got one rocket hiding back there?
Kate, AIM has control of the bridge. We can't open it again unless we get it back.
Wait, just hang on! How about a rain check?
However, we are not always fighting bosses, and I am aware some of you are not a fan of the glass cannon builds, and in all honesty I myself don't take this build into regular missions. For any non-boss type content, we want to add some survivability into our build as well as a way to regen our intrinsic energy, so let me show you what I changed to get that. First, we are going to swap out our artifacts. We are going to add in this Cosmic Surge artifact that has precision, resolve and resilience. Most importantly, we are using this ISO for the reactive Cosmic Surge perk. I go on about this perk in every build video I make, but it's honestly an S-tier perk, especially on an ISO artifact. Upon taking damage you have a chance to completely start healing and regenerating your heroics. Best place to farm these is DNA chests, but they show up in activities all over the game such as the OLT and Tachyon Surge missions. Next, we are going to change our defense slot to something more tanky. So, another perk I love and is heavily underrated is the defense buff, still rocking the precision and valor but adding some resolve into our build as well. I will let this clip speak for itself. Upon activating this you will take tiny amounts of damage compared to without the buff. Combining this with the reactive surge artifact we just talked about and you will be healing while also taking hardly any damage, making for a real tanky build. Just to hammer this point home even more, here is another example against some adaptoids. With a simple defense buff and reactive cosmic surge artifact you can take so many hits that honestly, we really don't need to get our defense stats that high, making our glass cannon build much more viable as it can do both high damage with high survivability. I am not going to explain the whole skill tree, most of it is pretty self-explanatory. Please just pause the video if you want to copy the skills I am using. But skills I will heavily recommend are skills such as Arc Field in the support heroic tree. This is the perk that allows you to stay alive and prevents you from being stunned due to the shield protecting you from enemy projectiles. I also like to pair it with Defensive Field that fires some of those annoying projectiles back at enemies. In the Mastery Ranged tree you will want to activate the perks for whatever weapon you are using. Everything else here is pretty self-explanatory. We are going for most the skills that increase our damage. Honestly, explaining most of these will just be teaching you guys how to suck eggs, and if you hover over the skills, you will be able to work out why I picked them. I think what's great about a lot of the gear I've showed you is that you can mix and match a lot of this to fit your playstyle or the mission you are playing. Maybe you want to use the glass cannon build but you want a little bit of survivability, so instead of going full tank you can use the cosmic surge artifact and the defense buff chest piece and keep one ISO on precision so you still deal really good damage and have a bit of survivability. With all the gear I have showed you today you should be able to mix and match to create the perfect Iron Man build for you. Well, that's pretty much all I have to show you for now. Be sure to subscribe for part 2 when I will show my raid Iron Man build that's using Sonic and Vibranium, perfect for the upcoming raid. I won't make this video any longer than it needs to be by adding loads of gameplay at the end. Instead, if you go to the pinned comment or description, I will leave a ton of videos showing the strength of this build from ult solo kills to power level 170 harm room gameplay. Thanks for watching.